Webb is human security contractor working for Sentinel Protection Services, private firm that provides security and protective services to various clients across Alliance territories. The work is professional but not particularly glamorous. Threat assessment, protective details for diplomats and executives, security coordination during events requiring cross-cultural expertise. Marcus has been in the security industry for 12 years. He's former military, served 6 years in Earth Alliance Defense Forces, specialized in close protection and threat response, left with honorable discharge and extensive practical experience, but without the formal credentials or the political connections that some veterans leverage into high-profile government or corporate positions. His reputation is built on competence and discretion. Clients hire him because he's good at the work, thorough threat assessments, professional protective operations, ability to coordinate with local security forces across different cultural contexts. He's not famous, doesn't have prestigious client list that he can advertise, but he stays steadily employed because people who work with him recognize his capability. 3 months ago, Marcus was assigned to routine security detail, protecting visiting human trade delegation during their negotiations in Thessari space. The delegation was conducting meetings about commercial agreements, relatively low-stakes diplomatic work that didn't require elaborate security, but that still needed professional oversight to ensure the human negotiators weren't exposed to unnecessary risks. Marcus's role was standard protective work: assess security at meeting locations, coordinate with Thessari security forces about protocols and threat information, maintain vigilant presence during the meetings themselves, ensure safe transport between locations. The assignment was meant to be straightforward. Most of it was. Meetings proceeded smoothly, security coordination with Thessari forces was professional. No incidents occurred that required anything beyond routine protective procedures. But during one meeting at industrial facility on the outskirts of the Thessari capital, site visit, where the trade delegation was touring manufacturing operations relevant to the commercial agreements they were negotiating, something happened that never made it into official reports. Marcus was conducting security sweep of the facility's perimeter while the delegation was inside touring the operations. Standard procedure: walk the boundary, identify potential access points, assess whether security posture is adequate for the delegation's protection needs. He was checking area near one of the facility's service entrances, less visible section away from the main access points where the delegation had entered, when he encountered woman who appeared to be in severe distress. She was collapsed near the service entrance, barely conscious, showing visible signs of respiratory difficulty. Her skin was showing distressed colors that Marcus's limited knowledge of Thessari physiology recognized as indicating medical emergency. She was trying to call for help but couldn't generate adequate breath for coherent speech. Marcus's military medical training kicked in immediately. He recognized the symptoms: anaphylactic shock, severe allergic reaction causing respiratory compromise that would be fatal without immediate intervention. He didn't waste time trying to determine what caused the reaction or who the woman was. Just responded with emergency medical protocols. Administered epinephrine from his field medical kit. Security contractors carry emergency medical supplies as standard equipment. Positioned her for optimal breathing, called for medical assistance through his communication system, stayed with her monitoring her vital signs. The epinephrine worked quickly, her breathing stabilized, consciousness improved, the acute crisis passed. Medical personnel arrived within minutes. Marcus provided handoff briefing about the situation and the treatment he'd administered. The medical team took over her care and transported her to proper medical facility. The entire incident lasted perhaps 20 minutes. Emergency response, medical handoff, returned to his assigned duties protecting the trade delegation. Marcus filed brief incident report with his security firm noting that he'd provided emergency medical assistance to local civilian experiencing allergic reaction at the facility perimeter. Routine documentation, not particularly significant event requiring detailed attention. The trade delegation's meetings concluded successfully over the following days. Marcus's security contract ended. He returned to Earth, took new assignments, moved on through the professional security contractor's life of temporary positions and diverse responsibilities. He never learned the identity of the woman he helped. Never followed up because it wasn't his role. He provided emergency medical response, handed her off to proper medical care, completed his documentation. Her identity and her ultimate condition weren't information he needed for his security work. What Marcus didn't know, what the security classification of the incident prevented him from learning, was that the woman he helped wasn't local civilian or facility worker. She was Queen Seraphina. The sovereign of the Thessari Empire had been conducting private inspection of the industrial facility, unannounced visit to assess conditions at important site, performed without the full ceremonial security apparatus that normally surrounds sovereign movements, because she wanted to see the facility's actual operations rather than the carefully prepared version that official visits produce. Seraphina had been examining area near the service entrance when she experienced severe allergic reaction to industrial chemical that the facility used, substance that Thessari aren't normally allergic to, but that she had unusual sensitivity to. Exposure that happened because she was in area that hadn't been cleared for sovereign visit, and where normal safety protocols about potential allergens weren't being observed. Her minimal security detail, small protective element that accompanied her during the private inspection, wasn't immediately present because Seraphina had separated from them to examine specific area they hadn't yet cleared. By the time they reached her location, responding to her missed check-in, Marcus had already stabilized the situation and medical personnel were providing transport. Seraphina was treated at secure medical facility. The incident was classified for security reasons, acknowledging that the sovereign had experienced medical emergency during unsecured movement would raise questions about protective protocols, would create perception of vulnerability that her political enemies might exploit, would potentially compromise the security approach of conducting occasional private inspections without full ceremonial apparatus. The security classification meant that even Seraphina's closest advisors and guards weren't given full details about what occurred. Commander Kethara, the Royal Guard captain, knew only that there had been medical incident during the facility inspection and that the sovereign had received appropriate treatment. The specifics, including the identity of the human security contractor who provided emergency response, were withheld even from the protective detail. Marcus Webb returned to his normal work, unaware that the civilian he helped was the Thessari Queen and that his emergency medical response had likely saved the life of one of the Alliance's most powerful rulers. Until today, 3 months later, when their paths cross again in circumstances neither of them anticipated. Marcus has been assigned to new security contract, providing protective services during major Thessari court ceremony where multiple Alliance species will be represented, and where security coordination between Thessari Royal Guard and visiting protective details requires contractors with cross-cultural experience. The ceremony is Alliance Integration Celebration, annual event commemorating the founding of the current Alliance structure, traditionally hosted in rotation by different member species. This year is Thessari turn to host, which means elaborate ceremonial proceedings in the grand audience chamber of the Imperial Palace, with diplomatic representatives from dozens of Alliance species all attending. Security for such events is complex coordination challenge. Each diplomatic delegation brings their own protective personnel. The host species provides overall security architecture. Everyone needs to coordinate to avoid conflicts over jurisdiction, protocols, and threat response procedures. Marcus is working the ceremony as part of security team protecting human diplomatic delegation. He's one of several human contractors hired to supplement the delegation's protection, reporting to the delegation's chief of security, but operating with significant autonomy in how he executes his protective responsibilities. His position for the ceremony is in the grand audience chamber among other security personnel, mix of human contractors, Thessari Royal Guards, and protective details from various other Alliance species, all positioned to maintain security vigilance while remaining unobtrusive to the ceremonial proceedings. Marcus has been to the Imperial Palace before on other security assignments, but this is first time working ceremony of this scale in the grand audience chamber. The space is magnificent, soaring architecture, elaborate decoration, the physical embodiment of Thessari imperial power and cultural achievement. The chamber is filled with hundreds of people for the ceremony. Diplomatic delegations positioned according to strict protocol, Thessari nobles and officials occupying their designated areas, cultural and religious leaders representing various Alliance traditions, military officers in formal dress uniforms. Queen Seraphina sits on the throne at the chamber's focal point, elevated position making her visible to all attendees, surrounded by her honor guard, wearing full ceremonial regalia appropriate for major alliance celebration. The ceremony has been proceeding for approximately 40 minutes. Various diplomatic presentations, ceremonial speeches, the formal rituals that such events require. Marcus is maintaining professional security awareness, monitoring crowd patterns, tracking movement, assessing potential threats with the constant low-level vigilance that protection work demands. He's not paying particular attention to the ceremonial content. His role is security, not diplomacy. He watches people and patterns, not specific speeches or ritual elements, which is why he notices immediately when something changes in the ceremony's flow. Queen Seraphina is receiving credentials from newly appointed Alliance Ambassador, CourtShe diplomat, presenting formal documentation, establishing her authority to represent her government. Standard ceremonial procedure that's been performed dozens of times already during this event. Seraphina is responding with the traditional acceptance formula, formal words acknowledging the credentials and welcoming the ambassador to the Alliance diplomatic community. Mid-sentence, she pauses, not dramatically, not in a way that suggests distress or confusion. Just brief pause, half-second where her attention shifts, where her eyes move from the ambassador presenting credentials to scan the broader assembled crowd. Her gaze sweeps across the grand audience chamber. Hundreds of faces, formal attire, the complex positioning of various delegations and security details. Her eyes stop on Marcus. He feels the moment of recognition, sees it in how her expression shifts subtly, how her attention focuses and holds despite the ceremonial context that should keep her engaged with the ambassador presenting credentials. The pause extends to full second, 2 seconds, long enough that people near the throne are beginning to notice that the sovereign has stopped mid-response and is looking at someone in the crowd rather than completing the formal acceptance of credentials. Then Queen Seraphina speaks, clearly, unmistakably, her voice carrying across the grand audience chamber with authority that cuts through the layered noise of ceremony and protocol. Marcus Webb. The chamber falls into immediate silence, not gradual quieting, instant cessation of all sound as every person present recognizes that something unprecedented is occurring. The sovereign just addressed someone by name during formal ceremony. Deviation from protocol significant enough that it commands absolute attention. Marcus freezes, his professional training preventing him from showing visible confusion, but his mind racing to understand why Queen Seraphina just called his name in front of hundreds of Alliance diplomats and officials during formal ceremonial proceedings. Marcus Webb, step forward, Seraphina says with voice that carries complete authority and expectation of immediate compliance. Marcus's security training overrides his confusion. When sovereign gives clear direction during formal court ceremony, you comply regardless of whether you understand the reason. He walks toward the throne with controlled professional movement, hyper-aware that hundreds of eyes are tracking him, that murmurs are beginning throughout the chamber as people try to understand what's happening. Who is that? Human security contractor, I think. Why is the Queen calling him forward? What authority does he hold? I've never seen him at court before. The speculation ripples through the crowd. Marcus reaches the appropriate distance from the throne, position where petitioners and those being addressed by the sovereign traditionally stand, and stops. His bearing is military formal even though he's not in uniform and not currently serving in military capacity. Your Majesty, he acknowledges, using the proper form of address while waiting for explanation of why he's been summoned. Seraphina looks at him directly. Her expression is composed, showing none of the surprise or confusion that others in the chamber are displaying. And in her eyes, Marcus sees recognition, not just acknowledgement that he's the person she called forward, but deeper recognition suggesting she knows exactly who he is and why she's summoning him. She remembers the medical emergency 3 months ago, the human security contractor who provided emergency response when she was experiencing anaphylactic shock at the industrial facility. She knows that he's the one who helped her, even though official reports were classified and even though he never learned her identity. Commander Kethara, Seraphina says, addressing her Royal Guard captain without breaking eye contact with Marcus. Commander Kethara steps forward from her position with the honor guard. Your Majesty. Step aside, Seraphina orders calmly. Marcus Webb will stand at my side for the remainder of this ceremony. The grand audience chamber erupts into barely contained shock, audible gasps, chromatic skin patterns flashing surprised white across dozens of Thessari observers, the murmuring becoming actual voiced objection from several quarters. The queen just dismissed her royal guard, the elite Thessari warriors whose entire existence is dedicated to protecting the sovereign, and replaced them with human security contractor who holds no official position in Thessari court, who has no visible credentials or rank that would justify such extraordinary trust. Commander Kethara's skin shows alarmed purple mixing with confused white. Your Majesty, I must respectfully protest. My sacred duty is your protection. The honor guard's role is... I am aware of your duty and your role, Commander, Seraphina interrupts with tone that's firm but not harsh. And I am exercising my sovereign authority to temporarily reassign that protective function. Marcus Webb will stand at my side for the remainder of this ceremony. You and the honor guard will maintain your positions, but will defer immediate proximity protection to him. Your Majesty, this violates established security protocols, Kethara protests, her professional responsibility overriding the hesitation to directly challenge sovereign direction. We have no security assessment of this contractor, no verification of his background or his capabilities, no established protocols for integrating foreign security personnel into immediate sovereign protection. I cannot in good conscience comply with this order without understanding the rationale. The rationale is my trust, Seraphina states clearly. Marcus Webb has already proven his loyalty and his capability to protect me under circumstances where my safety was genuinely at risk. Circumstances that you and the honor guard were not present for, and that security classification prevents me from detailing publicly. She looks at Kethara directly. I am not testing him, Commander. I am not creating diplomatic theater or making political statement about alliance integration. I am relying on him, placing my safety in his hands because I know from direct personal experience that those hands are competent and trustworthy. But Your Majesty, Kethara tries again. Step aside, Commander, Seraphina says with absolute finality. That is direct sovereign order. You may maintain your protective posture from your current positions, but Marcus Webb will stand at my immediate side. Kethara's expression shows the conflict between her professional judgment about security protocols and her training in absolute obedience to sovereign commands. The training wins. She steps back to her position with the honor guard, her bearing communicating that she's complying under protest but that she will comply. Seraphina gestures to Marcus. Stand here, indicating position immediately beside the throne, space normally occupied by the honor guard captain or by the sovereign's chief counselor. Position that places him within arm's reach of the throne, and that symbolically communicates his role as immediate protector. Marcus moves to the indicated position, still processing what's happening. He's being assigned immediate protective responsibility for the Thessari sovereign during major alliance ceremony, in front of hundreds of witnesses, without any formal briefing or coordination with the existing security apparatus. His professional training takes over. If he's been given protective responsibility, he'll execute it properly regardless of the irregular circumstances. He positions himself with optimal sight lines to assess potential threats, adjusts his stance to allow quick response to any approach toward the throne, falls into the alert watchfulness that close protection work requires. Lord Vethros, the chief counselor, approaches the throne from his designated position. Your Majesty, this decision is creating significant confusion among the assembled delegates. They don't understand why you've dismissed your honor guard in favor of unknown human contractor. The speculation and the protocol violation are disrupting the ceremony's dignity. Then I will provide clarity, Seraphina says. She raises her voice to address the entire grand audience chamber. Marcus Webb is human security professional who saved my life 3 months ago when I experienced medical emergency during private facility inspection. He provided emergency medical response with skill and dedication, asking nothing in return, seeking no recognition or reward. He acted because someone needed help, not because he knew who I was or what political advantage might come from assisting me. I learned his identity only recently when reviewing security documentation related to that incident. Seraphina continues, a slight simplification of how she recognized him, but accurate enough for public explanation. When I saw him present at today's ceremony, I recognized him immediately, and I chose to honor the debt I owe him by placing my safety in his hands, publicly acknowledging that he has already proven himself worthy of trust that many who serve me in official capacities have never been tested for. This is not protocol violation, Seraphina states clearly. This is sovereign exercising my right to choose who I trust with my protection based on demonstrated loyalty rather than on formal credentials or political positioning. Marcus Webb will stand at my side for the remainder of this ceremony. Any questions about his authority or his right to that position can be directed to me personally. The grand audience chamber processes this explanation with varying reactions. Some showing understanding, recognition that saving sovereign's life does indeed justify extraordinary trust. Others showing skepticism, questioning whether this explanation is complete or whether there are political dimensions they're not seeing. All showing awareness that whatever just occurred represents significant moment with implications extending beyond the ceremony itself. Ambassador David Chen, representing Earth's diplomatic interests at the ceremony, shows relieved gold skin colors. He was concerned about how Marcus being called forward would be interpreted politically. But Seraphina's explanation frames it in terms that justify the irregular appointment, and that actually enhances human Thessari relations by demonstrating that human contractor earned sovereign's personal trust. Marcus stands at his assigned position, maintaining professional protective awareness while also trying to process the magnitude of what just occurred. 3 months ago, he provided emergency medical response to someone he thought was civilian. Now he's standing beside the throne of the Thessari Empire, publicly acknowledged as person the sovereign trusts with her safety, elevated into position of consequence that no one in this chamber was prepared to accept or understand. The ceremony resumes. The Korathi ambassador who was interrupted completes her credential presentation. Seraphina provides the formal acceptance she was in the middle of when she paused to call Marcus forward. The proceedings continue with Marcus maintaining his protective position beside the throne, but everything has changed. Marcus is no longer anonymous security contractor working routine protective detail. He's the human who saved the Queen's life without knowing who she was, and who has now been publicly recognized and trusted with her safety in front of the entire Alliance diplomatic community. Commander Kethara maintains her position with the honor guard, but her attention is focused on Marcus, watching how he executes the protective role, assessing whether the sovereign's trust is justified by his professional capability. What she observes is competent protective work. Good positioning, alert awareness, professional bearing that suggests Marcus knows exactly what he's doing even in circumstances he had no preparation for. After the ceremony concludes and the diplomatic delegations begin departing, Seraphina addresses Marcus privately. I apologize for placing you in difficult position without warning. But when I recognized you among the security personnel, I could not let the moment pass without acknowledging what you did for me 3 months ago. Your Majesty, I had no idea who you were, Marcus says honestly. I just responded to medical emergency. That's basic security and medical training. You help people in distress. I know you didn't know, Seraphina responds. That's precisely why your action mattered so much. You helped because someone needed help, not because helping a queen would benefit you. That kind of loyalty, loyalty that exists without witnesses, without expectation of recognition or reward. That's more valuable than any formal oath or official appointment. The trust I placed in you today was not test or performance, she continues. It was genuine reliance. I know you've already proven yourself capable and trustworthy under circumstances where my life was actually at risk. Standing at my side during ceremony where actual threat was minimal. That was easy trust to give compared to what you already earned 3 months ago. In the days following the ceremony, the implications of what occurred begin developing in ways Marcus didn't anticipate. His security firm receives inquiries from multiple Thessari officials and from other Alliance diplomatic missions about Marcus's availability for protective assignments. The public acknowledgement from Queen Seraphina that he saved her life and that she trusts him with her safety has created reputation that significantly enhances his professional standing. Commander Kethara requests meeting with Marcus to discuss the protective procedures he employed during the ceremony. Not hostile interrogation, but professional consultation. She wants to understand his approach, to assess whether the sovereign's trust is justified by his capabilities, to potentially integrate some of his techniques into Royal Guard training. During their meeting, Kethara addresses the ceremony directly. I was frustrated when Her Majesty dismissed my protective role in your favor. The Honor Guard exists specifically to protect the sovereign, and having our function reassigned to foreign contractor violated everything I've trained for. But I watched how you executed the assignment, Kethara continues. Your positioning was optimal. Your awareness was comprehensive. Your bearing communicated that you took the responsibility seriously and that you had the capability to fulfill it properly. Her Majesty's trust was not misplaced. I appreciate that assessment, Marcus responds. Though I'm still processing how I went from routine security contractor to standing beside the Thessari throne in front of hundreds of Alliance diplomats. You went there because you earned it, Kethara says. Not through political maneuvering or formal credentials, but through action when it mattered. You saved Her Majesty's life without knowing who she was and without expecting anything in return. That's the kind of loyalty that formal oaths and official positions can't guarantee. The ceremony was Her Majesty making public what you had already proven privately, Kethara concludes. She recognized you and she trusted you based on demonstrated action rather than on status or credentials. That's how trust should work, earned through behavior, not assumed through position. Ambassador David Chen also meets with Marcus to discuss the political implications. What Queen Seraphina did, calling you forward by name, dismissing her honor guard in your favor, publicly acknowledging that you saved her life, that creates significant positive perception about human Thessari relations. She demonstrated that she trusts human contractor with her personal safety, David explains. That she values loyalty and capability over formal credentials or species affiliation. That she's willing to elevate someone based on their actions rather than on their political positioning. Those are powerful messages about how she views the Alliance and how she views humanity's role within it. I wasn't trying to create diplomatic messaging, Marcus protests. I just helped someone who needed emergency medical response. I know, David says. That's exactly why the messaging is so powerful. You weren't performing for political benefit. You were acting based on basic human decency and professional competence. And when Seraphina recognized that publicly, she was affirming that those qualities, the willingness to help without calculating advantage, the capability to act effectively under pressure, those are what she values and trusts. Several weeks after the ceremony, Marcus receives formal communication from the Thessari Imperial Court. Queen Seraphina is offering him position as Special Security Advisor, reporting directly to her and to Commander Kethara, responsible for providing perspective on protective procedures, and for serving in protective capacity during situations where his specific capabilities are needed. The position is unprecedented. No foreign contractor has ever been formally integrated into the sovereign's protective apparatus. But Seraphina is creating it specifically for Marcus based on the trust he earned 3 months ago and that she publicly acknowledged during the ceremony. Marcus accepts the position, recognizing that it represents extraordinary professional opportunity and that it's based on foundation of genuine earned trust rather than on political calculation. During his first formal meeting in his new role, Seraphina addresses what the position represents. I'm not appointing you because I need foreign perspective on security or because I want to make political statement about alliance integration. I'm appointing you because 3 months ago you proved that you're someone I can trust with my safety. Someone who acts based on competence and loyalty, rather than based on calculation about personal advantage. The ceremony where I called you forward, that was recognition of what you'd already proven, Seraphina continues. This appointment is acting on that recognition, placing you in position where your demonstrated capabilities can continue serving important purpose. I am honored by your trust, Your Majesty, Marcus responds, and I will continue working to deserve it. You've already deserved it, Seraphina says. You earned it when you helped someone experiencing medical emergency without knowing who they were or what benefit might come from helping them. That's the kind of loyalty that status can't create and that formal appointments can't guarantee. That's trust born from action rather than from position, and that's the most valuable trust there is. The alien queen recognized the human during court. She called him forward, spoke his name clear and unmistakable. Murmurs rippled instantly. Of all the guards, advisors, and sworn protectors present, she chose a human. One with no crest, no visible rank. She dismissed her honor guard, signaled for him to stand at her side. Tension sharpened into disbelief. She was not testing him. She was relying on him. Trust born from prior action rather than status. A ruler's safety placed in hands of someone who already proved their loyalty without witnesses. Being recognized, publicly and without explanation. Elevated into a position of consequence. No one else in the room was prepared to accept. Because sometimes trust isn't earned through credentials. It's earned through action when it matters. Through helping without knowing who you're helping. Through loyalty demonstrated without witnesses or rewards. That's the trust that changes everything.